Welcome to the Introspective Collective. Today's topic is, am I my brother's sister's keeper? One of the origins of am I my brother's sister's keeper is a biblical one, either a verse or a parable of Cain and Abel. And essentially what it means is being responsible for the welfare of a brother and or sister, or by extension, a family member, a friend, or even a stranger for that matter. So when one is compelled or feels a responsibility for his brother man, uh, for humanity, um, one would consider themselves their brother's keeper. And in general, I would say that I am my brother's sister's keeper. Now, you know, where did I get that from? I would say that from my parents. I live with my mother primarily. I spent some time with my father as well. And with them as an example, I would say I definitely saw examples of am I my brother's sister's keeper. For example, if a family member needed to borrow some money until they got paid on Friday, if somebody needed someone to watch the kids, or even in those examples where a parent had an illness or a sickness. I remember seeing my mother confront her mother about making sure that she took her insulin, and just to make sure that she was doing what she needed to do health wise. Um, I also recall my father, when my brother and I would go different places in the community to play basketball or football. We would play in our own community, but we would also travel across town to other communities. And he would make sure to let us know to have each other's back. And that basically meant safety wise, you all have to be each other's keeper. If something goes down, you make sure you support one another. You guys left together, make sure you come back together. And so that just became part of my experience, part of my understanding growing up. And even if I was with some of my other friends, other examples would be if we were going to the store or something like that. Back in those days, we would scrape up our pennies in order to get some penny candy, some Boston baked beans, Johnny
Oh no,
Appleseed,
you didn't say
a,
Boston baked beans.
a,
Look, you
You
didn't took
taking
it
me
back.
back. You
Chico
taking me
sticks,
back. And what about the BB bats?
the
Remember
BB
those?
bats, yeah. So for us, everybody didn't always have money, and perhaps you might get teased for not having money, but we make sure that we took care of each other, right? So if we went to the store and we bought up some food, we might throw the person who didn't have any money a dime, a nickel, and three pennies so they could get some, or we would just share, what we had.
Hmm.
So
Okay.
that was kind of my experience, kind of growing up. When you think about, where I kind of adopted the "Am I my brother's keeper?" Those are the examples that I remember. What about you guys?
So if I were to kind of dovetail or veggie back on what you said, Preston, I remember, when I was old enough to go with the group, go to the movies, go skating, go to the mall.
Right.
And, just like you said, or, it was you all went together, you make sure you come home together,
That's right.
That's right.
because I was usually the one that would go wander off and look at something and everybody's on to the next thing. So, and then this the way we looked out for each other when it was old enough to go out clubbing, you know,
Hmm.
Okay.
you watch my drink, you
Yep.
know, uh no, you're not leaving with that one. No, you come on and go home with us. We
That's
not
right.
playing
That's
it.
right.
So, I remember those messages. And you're the oldest, therefore you got to look after them. So the others, so, we were, I think our generation, I know even with my grandchildren, their mother, you know, will say the same thing. So that is part of it. And before I, throw it off to Desiree, um, like even just as women, you know, from a female perspective, I remember when I first heard this saying, and this is true, I don't care what generation. A true queen has no problem helping another queen with her crown.
Mm.
You know, and I think as females, that is our way of taking care of our sisters. Desiree, what do you think?
Well, I think I want to, touch upon what both of you guys said. So I'll just lead in with what you just said, Paula, as far as like sisterhood and having each other's back. You're right. As if you're a true sister, a true friend, when you see that your friend is in need, whatever that may be, it may just be sometimes it's like you just need a hug. It may just be a text checking in saying, "Hey, you're on my mind. I'm thinking about you." And I try to make sure that I do that. If someone crosses my mind and they're in my thoughts, I will send a text, be like, thinking of you, how are you? And it's just the little things too, emotionally being supportive. Not, it doesn't always have to be financially. It can just be, if you see someone's having a rough time, just, now everybody can DoorDash and things like that. Hey, I'm going to send you lunch today. Little things like that. Or I see that you need to kind of get out the house. Let's go for a walk, or let's just hang and go to the movies. Little things like that. So we can have each other's back in different ways. It all depends on what the need is, right? And being open to that. And then speaking to Preston's point and yours as well, Paula, as far as siblings, I didn't necessarily grow up with siblings, but with having two sons, I taught them no different. You have each other's back, regardless of how you might feel at home. We know siblings might wrestle with each other and be upset with each other, but when you step outside this house, you're a united front. You make sure
That's right.
you have each other's back. If something's going on, you make sure you speak up for your sibling, and you make sure no harm comes to he or she. And and to go a little deeper, so we bring it to other scenarios. If you see, and I'm just going to speak on, as a woman observing men as well, is that if you see that, I think men have a harder time being vulnerable and even asking for help. And I have encountered that in conversations with men. It's like, how do you guys kind of reach out to each other and just be supportive? Where it's like, you know what, like, yo, man, let's go hang out and watch, play basketball, or let's, cigars is a thing. You want to go hang out at the lounge and, smoke a cigar and have a drink. And sometimes it doesn't always mean that people want to talk about their problems, but it's just getting in the space that you feel comfortable and supportive, and that know that there's a listening ear available if that's what's needed at the time. So, Preston, what do you think as it relates to maybe the male perspective of having my brother's back, being my brother's keeper?
Well, that's a excellent summation that you gave there. It kind of makes me think of, what is having my brother's sister's back? What is being my brother's sister's keeper? And when you think about it, there's, certainly financial support. That's one way of helping, mentorship and guidance, physical safety. I think that's one that we often think of. But this is not an exhaustive list, but this last one of emotional safety and support is one that I know as men, we historically haven't been, really taught or encouraged to express the full range of our emotions. I think that people are
Mhm.
comfortable with anger,
Yep.
from men.
Yep.
But when you think about being your brother's keeper, well, you have the brother, um, who needs the support, and then you have the keeper. And if the keeper doesn't feel comfortable about talking about, extending a hand about intimate issues, it could be about something that's going on in a person's relationship or marriage. Men deal with being verbally abused sometimes. That's not something somebody generally feels comfortable talking about. A man could be dealing with erectile dysfunction. You know, he might be taking his blood
Yep.
pressure medication
Mm-hmm.
and he's not able to perform. You know, so if the keeper doesn't feel comfortable leading into these types of conversations with his brother, then how does the brother feel? Right?
True.
You
True.
know,
Okay.
nobody wants to feel less than a man. No one wants to feel like I'm weak. No one
Right.
wants to be looked down upon, you know, either from themselves or from anyone else. So oftentimes this creates a barrier between men in terms of having healthy conversations about the most intimate things going on with them.
Very true.
And so oftentimes this leads to unhealthy behavior, right? Drinking,
Mm-hmm.
smoking,
Mm-hmm.
explosions of angers, punching holes in walls, you know, saying things that you wouldn't normally say
Mm-hmm.
because what you're dealing with is going to be dealt with one way or another, whether it's healthy or unhealthy,
True.
but it's going to manifest in some type of way.
And if I could just, also talk about that, you know, many people find the expression external or just the outburst of anger more commonplace because sometimes that was the only emotion that was visible, in their home, in their community. And that's unfortunate because, like you said, the emotions that men aren't comfortable with sharing also was learned at an early age. And
Yes.
when I think about your the way you just described it, and everyone knows I'm a big fan, I think we all are, of um, the best man.
Mm-hmm.
Um,
Yes. Yes.
and when we think about, everyone, I mean, they were all friends. They all knew each other. They knew their what buttons to push. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
Um, you know, we can go from the first episode of Best Man, you know, how the character, what's his name? The green eye, the one with the light eyes,
Terrence.
Terrence, right? His
I don't think that was his name in the, but I get
No, but his
Right.
character, right?
Yeah.
Right.
His
Right.
character was digging at Ty Diggs' character because he was like,
Harper.
Harper. So he knew Harper, had did some dirt with that book. And while they were all sitting at the table with Lance, you could see how his character was coming at Harper. Then if you fast forward to each scene, people were giving Lance, what they felt about him. But the point I'm
Right.
trying to make, when Harper was all alone in the house that he wanted without
Right.
his wife and daughter,
Yes.
at his
Yeah.
lowest point,
Mm-hmm.
the brothers didn't even call, didn't even try to text. They felt comfortable enough as brothers. Just
Mm-hmm.
walk in. Yeah, you are selfish, you so and so, but guess
Right.
what? Come on, we getting ready to sit here and play our game.
They showed
So
up.
Mm-hmm.
They showed up.
they didn't even ask permission though.
Right.
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 Okay.
Right.
And to speak to your point, and that's part of bringing my brothers or sisters keeper, is if we see a need and we understand, if we speak to vulnerability, and men particularly and also women are vulnerable too. Sometimes it's hard for us to ask for help. Sometimes it's hard for us to even kind of express that we need help. But if you're paying attention and somewhat in tune to the people around you, then you show up, right? You may not 100% know what they need, but just showing up within itself, that action within itself shows that speaks volumes in that moment. So in that moment, it's like, I get it. You might not want to talk about it. Here's the drinks. Here's the food. Let's pull out the cards. Come on, bring your behind over here, sit down, and we just gonna just let it flow. And in a creating a safe space so that when
Yes.
people want to be vulnerable, they feel safe. Because I think what happens when we talk about emotionally having each other's back and being each other's keeper, we want to feel safe. Because if I open up and share this with you, I don't want now this to be used against me later or feel judged, because we all go through things. It's not a person alive that has not gone through something or may be going through something that they may be concerned about someone judging them if they share. Hence, like you say, internalizing and it becoming maladaptive behaviors, and people act out in other ways. But if we have someone being our keeper, that we can say, hey, I can text Paula and be like, do you have a minute? And Paula and I do that. Or even Preston, there may be times, like, hey, Desiree, you have a minute? Preston, you got a minute? And we
Right.
get it. We're all busy. Everyone pretty much is busy. We all got stuff going on, but taking the time means that's valuable too. When you reach out to somebody and they reciprocate, or they're busy, but they take the time, it could be 5 or 10 minutes to check in, or to say, okay, right now I have this going on, but I'm free tomorrow, or I'm free later this evening. That creates a safe place for people to be vulnerable and to get their needs met, and for us and or other individuals to be each other's keeper.
Excellent.
But
Excellent.
I love when we can understand, though, what is being a safe person, because everyone is not your safe person. And that, that also means, am I a safe person? What makes a safe person? What
True.
makes a person safe?
Yeah,
And
that's a good point. And sometimes you just made me think everyone doesn't necessarily have a safe person in their circle, you know.
Right.
well, I
But
hear you.
right, so it is important to kind of understand what is a safe person, someone that you feel comfortable talking to, that you can share, and you don't feel like you're going to be judged and or made fun of, or made to feel less than a man. I'm just speaking, primarily from the male perspective. That is a very vulnerable and sensitive, place to be. And perhaps somewhere in your village, maybe there's a peer, but maybe there's an elder. Maybe there's
Mm,
someone that you can go to that
hmm
you respect. It could be an old coach, perhaps. It could be the neighbor down the street. It could be someone in your church. It could, but sometimes we do have to kind of intentionally think about who's in our village that we could go to and talk to, because you don't want to be reckless or vulnerable with someone that you don't feel secure that you won't be judged, you know. So that is a good point, to look for someone in your village um who you would feel comfortable speaking with.
Oh, go ahead, Desiree.
And I just want to pick up from there, and as then transition over to Paula, and but I would say, so 2 points with a safe person. I would like to believe most of us hopefully can discern who we have in our space that is a safe person. I know people that I can go to and share certain things, and I know there's people that I would not. So I'm not going to just be vulnerable, and that speaks to healthy boundaries, and really being able to identify that. So that's one. So hopefully we do have those people in our circles. And then the second piece of that, if we do not, then that's something that individually we need to kind of reevaluate. If I am surrounded by people that I cannot trust at any level or at certain levels, then we need to kind of look at our circle, because again, it all starts and ends with self. So if I have, I'm in an environment, or if I have who I deem as friends or so-called supports that I don't trust in a moment that I might need a listening ear or need a hug, we need to look at that. Maybe that's some toxicity that we need to kind of get rid of. And then if we're some people, I get it, maybe more introverted, or just by nature of what they have gone through, or sometimes we don't have those supports, then maybe we need to look at some opportunities where we can try to see if we can cultivate a support system. And it may just be one person. So those are some things that is valuable in this conversation to look at, and then to speak to when Paula mentioned what makes a safe person, then we have to look at ourselves. Am I that type of person that someone would feel comfortable coming to and talking to? And if not, what are some things that I need to work on myself so that I can be my brother's or sister's keeper? So I'll pass it off to you, Paula.
So, Preston, you wanted to say something? I
Well,
kind of caught it.
yeah, I was just thinking that there's always the opportunity in life for someone to be the keeper, and for someone to be the keeper and need the keeper, right?
Mm-hmm.
And when we whatever we do, or when we don't handle things in a healthy way, whatever affects us mentally in a negative way, is going to affect us physically in a negative way, as well as it's going to affect us internally, spiritually. And so that goes for all three. So if we're not thinking an emotionally healthy way, or not expressing it ourselves in an emotionally healthy way, it can lead to other concerns and illnesses. Stress can lead to anxiety and depression. It can lead to high blood pressure and other physical symptoms. It can reduce um, your body's defense system when we are under significant stress for a period of time. So there is a cost to not having healthy ways of expressing yourself. And so I just wanted to mention that, Paula.
Okay. So, as we wind down this segment, um, and everything, I think we all are sharing perspectives that we observe personally and professionally. A lot of what I've heard today, I think about uh, one of the quotes. This was attributed to Rabbi Hillel. And it starts, and I'm only picking up a segment. Am I my brother's keeper? If not me, then whom? And if now, then when?
Mm-hmm.
Right? And then I, he also goes on to say, but if I am only for my brother or sister, then who will be for me? Okay. And
Mm-hmm.
while some people, it's kind of like a continuum. Some people go too far to the right, doing for others and not caring for self, and some people go too far to the left and only care about self. So
True.
we're talking about balance, right? And I
Yep.
think about the words in the Song of Solomon: I have tended to everyone else's vineyard, and mine is now bare or barren. So
Mm-hmm.
just like our IRC, it starts with the individual. It starts with self.
True.
Mm,
True.
absolutely.
Very, very true. So
All
it's an
right.
opportunity for people to kind of self-reflect and see what your takeaways are from this conversation, because oftentimes, as Paula just stated, we're to one extreme or another. What is a healthy balance? What is healthy boundaries we need to set for ourselves? Identifying what we need as we give to others, reflecting on whether it's a reciprocal relationship that we have with others. So it's really an opportunity to continue the discussion as you guys decide what the takeaway is from this podcast.
Okay, so we are going to end here, and take care to everyone who is listening. Bye
And
now.